Okay, let's go. Number 1. Queen Pwabi's gold headdress. The year is 1928. You're Leonard Woolley, British archaeologist, and you're standing at the bottom of a burial shaft in the desert south of Baghdad. The sand is cold at this depth. Your lamp throws a narrow cone of yellow light across the floor of the pit, and the floor is not empty. Arranged in careful rows before you are the skeletal remains of 68 people. Not scattered, not tumbled together, placed, soldiers along one wall. Ladies in waiting toward the center. A musician still positioned beside a golden lyre. And on the skull nearest to you, resting exactly where it was set 4,600 years ago, is a headdress made of gold. The royal tombs of ER were excavated by Woolley between 1922 and 1922 and 1934 in a joint expedition between the British Museum and the University of Pennsylvania Museum. He found 16 royal tombs and more than 2,000 grave pits. Most were stripped centuries before he arrived, but one was not. The tomb designated PG 800B belonged to a woman named Pwabi, her identity, confirmed by a lapis lazuli cylinder seal inscribed with her name and the title Nin, meaning queen. She died around 2600 BCE. The tomb had been sealed and untouched for more than 4 millennia when Woolley's team broke through the entrance. The headdress is not a subtle object. 3 tiers of gold leaves on a backing of lapis lazuli and carnelian beads, hung with pendants of gold and blue stone. It weighs approximately 1 kilogram. Woolley's team established it requires roughly 3 hours to assemble correctly, meaning someone, on the day Pwabi was buried, spent 3 hours putting it on her. It had collapsed onto the skull during decomposition, but all its elements were recoverable. Months of meticulous reconstruction followed. The headdress is now in the British Museum, every gold leaf individually hammered, every bead drilled and strung, every pendant hung at a calculated angle. It was not buried to be seen. It was buried to be worn, for whatever came after. But here's what Woolley didn't expect. The 68 surrounding attendants showed no signs of violence, no blade marks on the bone, no evidence of force. Near the hands of each attendant, his team found small ceramic cups, the kind used for drinking. The working interpretation, documented in Woolley's excavation notes and supported by subsequent analysis, is that they drank poison. Willingly. They walked into the pit in their finest clothing, took their assigned positions, lifted their cups, and waited. The soldiers wore copper helmets. The musicians brought their instruments. One woman's headdress was slightly askew, as if she had dressed in haste, or her hands had been shaking. Woolley described the moment in his 1929 publication, Ar of the Chaldees. When the full extent of the death pit became visible, his team fell silent, not from awe at the gold, from the realization of what the gold was resting on. A court had followed its queen into the earth. Every person in that pit was trained, equipped, dressed. They were not strangers hauled in from a market. They were the court, and they went. Did they go willingly? The archaeological record cannot answer that. There is no surviving text from ER describing the ritual, no account of what was promised in the days before the burial. There is only the physical evidence. 68 people in a pit, no wounds on the bone, cups near the hands, gold still gleaming on a skull after 4,600 years. What did Pwabi's court believe would happen to them in that earth? What were they given to drink? And somewhere at ER, because Woolley found 16 tombs, not one or their other pits like this one, still sealed, still waiting. From Iraq, we travel 6,000 miles east to Sichuan, China, where a construction crew in 1986 would accidentally tear open a pit sealed 3002, 100 years earlier, and find faces staring up from the soil that belonged to no known civilization on Earth. Number 2. The Sangsing Dui bronze masks. The year is 1986. You're a construction worker in Guanghan County, Sichuan Province, digging irrigation channels through agricultural land. Your shovel hits bronze. You dig around it. More bronze. Then, as the soil is cleared in wider and wider circles, a face emerges, eyes first. They protrude from the skull in cylindrical columns, 16 centimeters forward from their sockets, pointing outward like telescopes aimed at something above the horizon. The face is wider than a car door. It does not look like a human being. It has been in the ground for 3,200 years. It is staring at you. The Sangsing Dui site was partially known since 1929, but the 1986 discovery of 2 major sacrificial pits transformed it. A third pit was found in 1999. 2 more were announced in 2021. By then, the Sichuan Provincial Institute of Cultural Relics and Archaeology had recovered more than 13,000 individual objects from the site. Over 1,000 are bronze. The masks are what defy explanation. The largest, the bronze vertical eye mask, now displayed at the Sangsingdui Museum, weighs 102 kilograms, stands 71 centimeters tall, and stretches 1.32 meters across. Casting an object of this size required precise temperature control, multi-part mold construction, and bronze metallurgy equal to anything in the ancient Mediterranean or Middle East at the time. The protruding cylindrical eyes appear across dozens of smaller masks. Stanford archaeologist Rowan Flad has proposed they represent supernatural vision, or possibly solar symbolism. No text survives to confirm either interpretation. The Shu Kingdom, which produced these objects around 1200 BCE and was contemporary with but culturally unrelated to the Shang dynasty, left no writing of any kind. But here's where it gets strange. The objects were not simply buried. They were destroyed first, smashed, burned, then placed in the pits in a pattern suggesting intentional arrangement, not disposal. DNA analysis of bone fragments from the 2021 excavations confirmed the presence of multiple human sacrifices in at least 2 of the pits. Whatever ceremony this was, it was not simple. The Shu Kingdom has no known descendants. No contemporary culture claimed connection to them. Around 1000 BCE, the artifacts stop. The pits were sealed. The people who cast 102-kilogram bronze faces with protruding cylindrical eyes simply vanished from the archaeological record. No documented migration. No confirmed assimilation with neighboring cultures. Who were the Shu? What did those protruding eyes represent, and what were they designed to look at? If the objects were ritually destroyed before burial, were they being decommissioned, made safe, or were they being offered to something? And why, after producing objects of this scale and sophistication, did the entire civilization leave behind no written word, no identifiable grave, no successor culture? The pits were sealed for 3,000 years. When the soil was cleared away in 1986, the faces were intact. They were still looking at whatever they had always been looking at. From China's Shu Kingdom, we travel 12,000 miles to the north coast of Peru, where in 1987 a looter's tunnel would lead a Peruvian archaeologist into a burial chamber that would redefine pre-Columbian civilization and produce one detail that he described in his field notes for years afterward. Number 3. The Lord of Sapon Treasure. The year is 1987. You're Walter Alva, director of the Bruning Archaeological Museum in Lambayeque, Peru. Looters broke into a burial mound at Huaca Rajada, near Sapon. One looter was killed in a confrontation. The others escaped. Alva follows their tunnel into the mound, dropping through packed earth and sand. At the end of the tunnel is a burial chamber that no one has entered for 1,900 years. The man inside is wearing gold. There is a great deal of gold. What Alva found at Huaca Rajada over the following months is now recognized as one of the most important archaeological discoveries of the 20th century. The Lord of Sapon, a Mach ruler who died around 100 CE, was interred with more than 450 individual objects. The gold backflap, a crescent-shaped ornament worn at the lower back during ceremonies, measures 45 centimeters across its surface, hammered to a uniform thinness across the entire piece without weakening the metal. A gold headdress spreads in a fan approximately 1 meter wide, its feathers individually crafted from sheet gold. A necklace of 10 gold peanuts and 10 silver peanuts, 8 beads on each side, precisely balanced because the Mach associated gold with the sun and silver with the moon, and the Lord required both in death. Each peanut is approximately 10 centimeters long, its surface texture hammered into sheet metal roughly 1 millimeter thick. Modern metallurgists examining the objects at the Larco Museum in Lima have been unable to fully replicate the technique. But it wasn't the gold that stopped Alva cold. Flanking the Lord's wooden coffin were 2 additional burials, 2 male soldiers interred in a standing position. Skeletal analysis published in Latin American Antiquity in 1994 documented what the bone examination made clear. Both men had their feet amputated at the ankle before burial. Perimortem cuts made at or around the time of death. Not decay damage, not animal activity. Deliberate removal. The interpretation in Alva and Christopher Donan's 1993 publication, Royal Tombs of Sapon, is straightforward. The guardians were bound to their post. Their feet were taken so they could not walk away. In death, they would stand beside the Lord of Sapon for eternity, because they had no means to do otherwise. The chamber also contained 2 women, a child, a dog, and 2 llamas, all sacrificed. The women wore their own jewelry. They were not anonymous. Alva noted in his field reports that unlike any other excavation he had conducted, the intentionality inside Huaca Rajada was tangible in the specific, measurable sense that every body had been placed with a precision implying extensive preparation and an absolute belief in what came next. If this was devotion, what had the Lord of Sapon demanded of the living in the days before his burial? Who decided the guardian's feet would be removed, and how was that decision communicated to the men who would be buried? Were they willing, as Puabi's court may have been, or were they brought to the chamber by force? The peanut beads sit in Lima, 10 gold, 10 silver, still balanced. The feet of the guardians are in a separate case nearby, cut marks still visible on the bone, still in exactly the position they were placed 1,900 years ago. From Peru's north coast, we return to Iraq, where in 1989, beneath the stone floor of the Assyrian royal palace at Nimrud, archaeologists broke through a sealed slab and found gold that had been waiting 2,800 years, accompanied by a written warning they had hoped was metaphorical. Number 4. The Nimrud Gold. The year is 1989. Your Muzahim Mahmud Hussein, head of the Iraqi State Board of Antiquities excavation at Nimrud, the ancient Assyrian capital, on the Tigris River, 30 kilometers south of Mosul. Your team has been working beneath the floor of the harem wing of the palace of Ashurnasirpal II. This morning your excavators struck stone where there should be none. You clear the earth. It's a sarcophagus, its lid sealed with lead. Carved into the stone, in Akkadian cuneiform, is a text. Your translator reads it aloud. Whoever disturbs this burial and removes the queen from her resting place will know no rest in life and no peace in death. You pause. Then you break the seal. Between 1988 and 1989, Hussein's team discovered 4 sealed tombs beneath the mud brick floors of the Assyrian royal palace. They were intact untouched since the 9th and 8th centuries BCE. The find was announced in Baghdad in 1989. The tombs belonged to Assyrian queens including Queen Yaba, wife of Tiglath-Pileser III, and Queen Banatu, wife of Shalmaneser V. Tomb 2, Queen Yaba's burial, yielded more than 600 individual gold objects. Crowns, earrings, bracelets, necklaces, finger rings, anklets, vessels. The combined gold weight from that single chamber exceeded 14 kilograms. The objects are extraordinary. The crown found with Queen Yaba is a thin gold disc ringed with chains ending in individually formed pomegranate pendants. John Malcolm Russell, writing in Biblical Archaeologist in 1991, described the Nimrud gold as among the finest Assyrian craftsmanship ever documented. The jewelry was not made for burial. It was worn. These were women who dressed for the court of an empire. The gold followed them into the ground because they believed they would need it again. The curse inscription on Queen Yaba's sarcophagus was not standard formula. It was explicit and personal and named queen, addressing named successors, threatening insomnia in life and unrest in death. Hussein's excavation records, published by the State Board of Antiquities in 1992, note that he suffered a cardiac episode during the excavation of Tomb 2. He recovered and continued. The episode was documented. The mainstream view is that such inscriptions were protective convention, the ancient Near Eastern equivalent of a no trespassing sign. Most tombs with similar inscriptions were robbed anyway. These were not. The gold vanished in 2003. When U.S. forces entered Baghdad, Hussein and his colleagues had moved the Nimrud treasure to the Central Bank of Iraq vault as a precaution. The bank flooded. U.S. Army engineers opened the vault and found it partially submerged. The sealed boxes were recovered intact, the gold undamaged. It returned to display in Baghdad in 2008. What drove Queen Yaba to commission a curse specifically about sleep? Where are the gold objects from the other 3 tombs, some of which were only partially excavated before 2003 halted work at Nimrud? And what else lies beneath the floors of Assyrian palaces we haven't yet opened? The curse is still there, carved in stone, in a museum display case in Baghdad. Queen Yaba has not moved. We travel northwest to the Bulgarian coast of the Black Sea, where the richest Copper Age burial ever found held 990 gold objects arranged in the shape of a person and not a single human bone. Number 5. The Varna Gold. The year is 1974. You're part of the Bulgarian excavation team at the Varna Chalcolithic Necropolis, a cemetery on the Black Sea coast. The site was discovered in 1972 when a mechanical excavator pulled up copper tools and ceramic vessels from a drainage trench. Systematic excavation under archaeologists Mikhail Lazarov and Ivan Ivanov would eventually open 294 individual graves. Today you're opening grave 43. Gold appears within the first few centimeters beads, then a diadem, then a penis sheath, then bracelets. You work carefully. More gold. After 2 hours of excavation, it becomes completely clear. There is no skeleton. There never was one. The Varna necropolis dates to approximately 4,600 to 4,200 BCE, the Chalcolithic, or Copper Age. The gold objects recovered from it are the oldest worked gold artifacts ever found anywhere on Earth, predating Egyptian gold jewelry by more than 1,000 years. The people buried at Varna left no written record, no monumental architecture, no clear successor culture. What they left is gold and evidence that they could find it, smelt it, work it, and assign it meaning at a date when that should not yet have been possible. Grave 43 contained 9 nine-day individual gold objects. That single burial held more gold by weight than all 293 other graves combined. The diadem is a flat band of hammered gold sheet. The penis sheath is anatomically specific, sized for a particular individual. The bracelets are solid gold prestige objects intended to be felt, not merely seen. Their arrangement was precise. The penis sheath at the groin position, bracelets at the wrists, diadem where the head would have rested, beads distributed along the torso line. It was a complete burial arrangement, just missing the person. The mainstream explanation is a cenotaph, a symbolic burial for someone whose body was unavailable. A ruler lost at sea, perhaps, or in battle. Cenotaphs are documented across many ancient cultures, and the concentration of gold in grave 43 is consistent with a burial of exceptional status. Ivan Ivanov, in his excavation reports published by the Bulgarian Academy of Sciences, noted that the disproportion between grave 43 and all other burials at the site was unlike anything in comparative prehistoric cemeteries. Colin Renfrew, in his 1986 paper Varna and the Emergence of Wealth in Prehistoric Europe, described the gold concentration as implying a category of person whose status had no equivalent elsewhere at the site. What that category was human, divine, symbolic, he declined to speculate. Who required 990 gold objects for a grave with no body? If this was a cenotaph for a ruler lost at sea, why is there no equivalent cenotaph anywhere else at Varna, a site with 293 other burials, some clearly high status? What does it mean that the oldest gold in human history was arranged in the shape of an absent person? And where is the person it was made for? The gold is in the Varna Museum of Archaeology. The space at the center of the display is still empty. From Bulgaria, we move to a cave in Somerset, England, where the body was very much present in pieces and had been transformed into objects found nowhere else on Earth, at no earlier point in human history. Number 6. The Goes Cave Skull Cups. The year is 2011. You're Dr. Sylvia Bello, a paleoanthropologist at the Natural History Museum in London, looking at a fragment of human skull under a microscope. It comes from Goes Cave in Cheddar Gorge, Somerset, a limestone cavern excavated at various intervals since the 19th century. The marks on this bone are not from burial. They are from tools. Small, precise stone blades drawn in repeated strokes across the inner surface of the skull, scraping it clean. The cuts follow a pattern methodical, skilled. Someone, 14,700 years ago, was making something from this skull. You look at the beveled edge along the rim. You realize what you are looking at. It's a cup. Radiocarbon dating conducted by the Oxford Radiocarbon Accelerator Unit in 2010 placed the remains at approximately 12,700 BCE, the very end of the last ice age, when the British Isles were not yet an island, and the North Sea was a tundra plain. These people were not farmers. They had no pottery, no metalwork, no permanent settlements. They were hunter-gatherers. 3 skull cups were identified. Each had been made from the calvaria, the upper dome of the skull. In each case, the process was identical. The skull was defleshed with stone tools, the base removed, the interior scraped clean, and the rim carefully shaped, chipped, and smoothed to create a regular, even edge. The techniques Bello's team documented in Plough S1 in 2011 were identical to those used by the same population to shape stone bowls from flint. The skull was being processed as raw material. The finished cups showed no casual handling damage. They were kept carefully. They were used. The rest of the human remains told the companion story. Other bones showed cut marks from defleshing. Long bones had been cracked for marrow extraction. The evidence pointed to ritual cannibalism. The dead were consumed, their bones processed, their skulls shaped into vessels. The mainstream interpretation is funerary cannibalism, a ritual honoring of the dead documented in various forms across ancient cultures globally. The skull cups were not trophies of violence but ceremonial objects made from the remains of individuals who may have been family. But the craftsmanship exceeds what any hastily ritual purpose would require. The rim shaping is precise. The interior scraping is thorough. These are not rough objects made in the immediate aftermath of a meal. They required time and care. The same hands that defleshed another person then spent additional hours finishing a skull into something that would hold liquid without leaking, sit level on a surface, be picked up and used repeatedly. They are, by any functional definition, finished objects. They are in the Natural History Museum in London. They look exactly like bowls. What were the people of Go's cave drinking from these skulls? Were the individuals consumed enemies or honored dead? Were the cups used once or kept and used across generations? And why, at a date when ritual manufacture of this complexity was not supposed to exist, did a population of Ice Age hunter-gatherers develop both the craft skill and the ceremonial intention to make them? From England's oldest ritual objects, we travel south to Spain where in 1963 a farmer would unearth a gold treasure that also contained something that fell from the sky. Number 7. The Valina Treasure. The year is 1963. Your Jose Maria Soler, archaeologist and director of the Valina Municipal Archaeological Museum in the province of Alicante. A local farmer has come to your office with a ceramic pot he found while digging irrigation channels. Something inside it is gleaming. You open it. Gold bowls, gold bottles, gold bracelets, a gold helmet, 59 objects in total, nested in a vessel the size of a large cooking pot. The largest Bronze Age gold hoard ever found on the Iberian Peninsula. Then you notice 2 small objects at the bottom that are not gold. The Valina treasure was catalogued by Soler in his 1965 publication and is now held at the Valina Municipal Archaeological Museum. The gold dates to approximately 1000 to 900 BCE, the Late Bronze Age. The bowls are hemispherical with concentric rings of hammered decoration. The bottles have symmetrical bodies beaten to uniform wall thickness. The bracelets are solid gold, not hollow. Total weight: approximately 9.75 kilograms. These were not ceremonial reproductions made light for show. They were real objects made to be heavy. The 2 anomalous items are small 2 bracelets and what appears to be a bottle cap dark gray, heavier than their size suggests, matching nothing else in the hoard. In 2021, José Luis Simón Garcia of the University of Alicante published definitive analysis in Trabajos de Prehistoria. The 3 objects are made from iron of meteoritic origin. The identification rests on the iron-nickel ratio. Natural terrestrial iron contains negligible nickel. Meteoritic iron characteristically contains between 5 and 30%. The Valina objects match only iron that arrived from space. This matters because in 1000 BCE, the Iberian Peninsula had no iron smelting technology. That capability would not reach Spain for another 500 years. The people who assembled the Valina treasure could not extract iron from terrestrial ore, but they could recognize a meteorite when it fell, recover it, and work it at approximately 1100 to 1200 degrees Celsius into shaped objects. They were not alone in this. Tutankhamun's iron dagger, recovered by Howard Carter in 1925 and confirmed as meteoritic in a 2016 study in meteoritics and planetary science, demonstrates that Bronze Age cultures across the ancient world understood the value of fallen star iron and possessed techniques to work it. Including meteorite iron alongside gold in a sealed prestige hoard was not accidental. Bronze Age prestige hierarchies placed gold at the apex of material value. To include iron from a fallen star alongside it in the same vessel, at the same level of craftsmanship means whoever assembled this hoard treated sky iron as equivalent in value to gold. They knew what it was. They knew where it came from. The mainstream explanation is that the hoard is a ritual deposit or emergency concealment, and the meteorite iron was included because of its perceived exceptional nature, not ordinary iron, but a substance that fell from the sky. This is probably correct, but whoever buried this knew the difference between sky iron and earth iron at a time when no one on the Iberian Peninsula could make iron from the earth at all. What do we believe a piece of the fallen sky was worth? And what were they going to do with it when they came back? From Spain, we travel east to the steppes of Ukraine, where Soviet archaeologists in 1971 found a gold breastplate so violent in its imagery that researchers debated for months whether to put it on public display. Number 8. The Scythian gold pectoral. The year is 1971. You're Boris Mozilevsky, a Soviet archaeologist with the Institute of Archaeology of the Ukrainian SSR, and you are inside a kurgan, a burial mound near the town of Orджоникідзе in the Dnipropetrovsk region of Ukraine. The kurgan is approximately 10 meters high, 70 meters across at the base. Your team reaches the burial chamber. Inside, on the chest of a skeleton, is a gold disc approximately 30 centimeters in diameter. You clear the soil from it millimeter by millimeter. The detail emerging is extraordinary. Then you reach the bottom register of the disc. You stop. The images there are not peaceful. The pectoral from the Latin pectorile, a chest ornament, was found in the Tolstaya Mogila kurgan in June 1971 and is now in the Museum of Historical Treasures of Ukraine in Kyiv. It weighs 1,140 grams of pure gold. Its diameter is 30.6 centimeters. 3 horizontal registers are separated by borders of twisted gold rope. It was produced around 350 BCE, when the Scythian kingdom dominated the Eurasian steppe from the Black Sea to the Altai Mountains. Greek craftsmen from workshops in Crimea may have made it to Scythian commission, combining Greek technical precision with Scythian cosmological content. The upper register shows everyday Scythian life. 2 men sewing a garment, a man milking a mare, a calf feeding, a bird on a branch, the domestic world. The middle register is stylized acanthus scrolls decoration, a visual breath. Then the lower register. A griffin tears a horse apart with its talons and beak, while the horse screams with its mouth open. A second griffin attacks a second horse. A lion brings down a deer. A winged serpent attacks a wild boar. Across the full 30-centimeter width, in gold relief so precise that the musculature of each animal is individually articulated, every mythological creature is consuming or destroying something else. The Scythians left no written language. Archaeological analysis of the burial, documented in Elena Fialko's study, published in Archaeology in 1994, established that the primary burial was interred alongside 11 sacrificed horses, arranged in a formation consistent with a war chariot retinue. 2 human attendants were also killed, and interred one a young woman whose skeletal remains indicated high personal status. She was not a servant. She was killed and placed in the grave. The mainstream scholarly interpretation is cosmological. The upper register is the human world. The lower register is the underworld, the forces of chaos that surround it. The person who wore the pectoral was positioned between those worlds. That is the point of the object. The Scythians spent months of goldsmith labor expressing the idea that below the surface of everyday life, something is always being torn apart. That violence is not exceptional. It is constant, and it sits just below the register of ordinary experience. Why did the Scythians need gold to tell that story? Why was it not enough to say it aloud? What was the young woman's name, and what did they tell her before they placed her in the grave? And if the pectoral is a map of the Scythian universe, what did they believe waited for the person buried beneath it? The pectoral is in Kyiv. The griffins are still tearing the horses apart. They have not stopped for 2,375 years. From Ukraine, we return to the sea and to a bronze object recovered from a Greek shipwreck in 1901 that sat in an Athens museum for 50 years before anyone understood what it was. Number 9. The Antikythera mechanism. The year is 1902. You're Valerio Stais, a Greek archaeologist working through objects recovered from a Roman-era shipwreck near the island of Antikythera. The wreck was found in 1900 by sponge divers led by Captain Dimitrios Kondos. They brought up marble statues, bronze figures, glassware, pottery, the cargo of a wealthy vessel that went down around 70 BCE. The objects have been in the National Archaeological Museum in Athens for 2 years while your team catalogs them. Most are straightforward. Then you pick up a corroded bronze lump the size of a shoebox and see, inside the corrosion on one face, the outline of a gear. Then a second. Then a third. You publish your finding. Your colleagues tell you a clockwork device cannot have been on a first-century ship. You are wrong, they say. The lump sits in a cabinet for 50 years. The Antikythera Mechanism Research Project, 17 researchers from Greece, the United Kingdom, and the United States conducted comprehensive CT scanning of the device in 2006. What they found, published in Nature that year, resolved the question that had lingered since St. The device contained 37 interlocking bronze gears, housed in a wooden case approximately 34 centimeters tall, 18 centimeters wide, and 9 centimeters deep. The gears mesh with tolerances measured in fractions of a millimeter. This was not a curiosity. It was an instrument built to do something specific, and it did it well. What it did. It tracked the metonic cycle, the 19-year period after which the lunar and solar calendars realign. It tracked the Saros cycle, 18 years and 11 days, the interval governing eclipse sequences. It tracked the positions of Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. It tracked the 4-year cycle of the Olympic and Panhellenic Games. Tony Freeth of University College London, leading the most recent analysis published in Nature in November 2021, confirmed that a front plate displayed the Moon, Sun, and all 5 planets on a single flat bronze disk. The device was, in functional terms, an analog astronomical computer. The technological comparison is what stops you. The complexity of 37 meshing bronze gears at this precision is equivalent to 18th century European clockwork. The next device of comparable mechanical sophistication appears in medieval European astronomical clocks around 1300 CEE. The Antikythera mechanism predates those clocks by approximately 1,400 years. Derek de Sala Price, the Yale physicist who spent 20 years on it before his definitive analysis in Scientific American in 1974, put it plainly. Nothing in the history of technology prepares us for the Antikythera mechanism. The mainstream explanation is that the device represents a high point of Hellenistic engineering, that Greek astronomical tana, and mechanical knowledge in the 2nd and 1st centuries BCE achieved a sophistication we have consistently underestimated, and that the tradition that produced it was simply destroyed. The collapse of late antiquity, the burning of libraries, the disruption of workshop lineages, these erased the knowledge base and left the mechanism as an orphan. That explanation is probably correct, but it implies something specific. The person who built the Antikythera mechanism did not invent it alone. They were trained. There were workshops, teachers, students and infrastructure that produced this device, and presumably others like it. Where are the others? Who broke the chain of transmission that should have led from this device to the machines of the modern world? And what would the history of technology look like if it hadn't been broken? From a bronze device that implies a lost tradition, we end where many ancient traditions ended, in the grave, where a Chinese prince named Lu Sheng waited 2,000 years for someone to open his suit of jade and find what his people had built to last forever. Number 10. The Jade Burial Suits of Lu Sheng. The year is 1968. You're part of a Chinese archaeological team excavating burial mounds at Mancheng, in Hebei Province, 150 kilometers southwest of Beijing. The excavation proceeds under the Institute of Archaeology of the Chinese Academy of Sciences, during the Cultural Revolution politically sensitive work that would not be immediately publicized. Your team tunnels into a cliff face and emerges into a burial chamber cut from the rock, nearly 52 meters long. Pottery, lacquerware, and bronze vessels are arranged throughout. Then, in the innermost chamber, lying on the stone platform where a person would lie, is a figure in jade, a complete human outline assembled from thousands of individual pieces, each sewn to its neighbors with gold wire. You reach down and open the chest. Inside, dust. The figure is the burial suit of Lu Sheng, Prince of Zhongshan, who died in 113 BCE during the Han Dynasty. He was approximately 50 years old. His suit contains 2,498 individual jade pieces, each cut to a slightly different shape, collectively forming a flexible mosaic that follows the precise contours of a human body. Face mask, gloves, boots, torso, arms, legs, all assembled from separate elements joined with approximately 1,100 grams of gold wire. The construction is estimated to have required roughly 10 years of labor by skilled jade workers artisans whose professional lives were dedicated to cutting, drilling, and linking jade pieces for a single commission that would be sealed in a tomb the day the prince died. In the adjacent chamber, a second suit. Princess Du Wan, Lu Sheng's wife. 2,160 jade pieces, gold wire. Both suits are now in the Hebei Museum in Shijiazhuang, and they are, by the assessment of jade-working scholars, including Jenny F. So of the Freer Gallery, whose analysis was published in 1995, the most technically accomplished jade objects ever recovered from any archaeological context. The belief that motivated them was documented in Han Dynasty texts. Jade was understood to possess preservative properties to slow or halt decomposition and maintain the body's integrity across death. The suit was not honorific. It was technology. It was designed to defeat decay, to hold the body in a state that would allow resurrection, or at minimum preserve, the person's identity across whatever interval separated death from what came after. Lu Sheng and Du Wan were not buried in jade because they were wealthy, though they were. They were buried in jade because many people, over many years, genuinely believed it would work. It did not work. The bodies decomposed completely. When the suits were opened in 1968, only trace calcium microscopic bone residue remained inside. The jade had held its position perfectly. The gold wire was intact. The hollow interiors of the gloves preserved the shape of fingers that no longer existed. The face mask was still in the configuration of a face. Inside, nothing. The technology failed at its stated purpose with complete thoroughness and preserved the evidence of its failure in perfect condition. Someone measured Lu Sheng's body and spent 10 years cutting 2,498 pieces of jade to fit it. That person believed, sewing the last piece of gold wire through the last jade tile, that they had done something that would matter. They had built a container for a person who was going to come back. The container is still there. The gold wire holds the shape of a man who is no longer inside it. Every treasure in this video was made by people who believed something absolutely, that their queen deserved a court in the afterlife, that bronze masks could see beyond the human world, that jade could hold a body together across death itself. The gold, the bronze, the jade are still here. The beliefs that made them are not. Subscribe if you want more of this. Like if the jade suits are going to stay with you. And tell us in the comments where you're watching from.